She walked into Pure Skin Laser Center in Los Angeles on December 16th, got on the table, looked at the technician, and said, "Start with the big one." 23,000 people were watching on Instagram Live, and the fact that so many tuned in wasn't about clout, it was about finality. People had been waiting for this particular move for a long time, even if they wouldn't have said so out loud. Because the Blueface face tattoo was never just ink. It became a timestamp. Every interview she did, every court appearance, every live stream argument, that portrait was in the frame, his mugshot, on her face. And every time the camera caught it, it answered a question nobody had to ask out loud. December 16th was the first day that changed. The tattoo itself was a large black ink portrait of Blueface's face, specifically his mugshot, covering the entire left side of hers. Temple to jawline. Not subtle, not somewhere you could miss if you weren't looking. And it wasn't alone. Sitting directly above it was his government name, Jonathan, also permanently on her face. Then there was the rose on her neck, which she'd gotten to cover up a previous Blueface-related piece. The face tattoo was the third layer of dedication she'd put on her body for this man, stacked on top of what was already there. She got it in early 2024. He was in jail at the time. That timing tells you something important. This wasn't a tattoo made from early relationship certainty. She got his face put on hers after years of chaos had already run through the relationship. After the arguments had gone viral, she did it anyway. That's not recklessness. That's something that doesn't have a comfortable label, which is exactly why watching her in that clinic chair landed the way it did. The footage spread fast, and what made it move wasn't spectacle. It was the lack of control in it. The technician working the laser, Chrisean's face doing things she couldn't manage, she screamed, she cried, and at one point, with no setup and no awareness of how it would land, she said quietly, "It burns. Jesus, this is what I get." That line wasn't for the camera. She wasn't talking to anybody. She was just in pain, thinking out loud, and the live stream caught it. And it carried more weight than anything she could have written afterward, because it was the sound of someone reckoning with a decision, not narrating it. After the session, she posted to her Instagram story, "Removing the tattoo from my face was a huge accomplishment for me. I didn't realize how emotionally attached I was to it until today. Letting it go released so much trauma I've been carrying." People clowned on that immediately, called it content, said she was performing grief for views. And there's no clean answer to that. Chrisean Rock has never fully separated her actual life from what she puts on camera. But those two things aren't opposites. The tears weren't added in editing. The scream wasn't staged. Whatever she was sitting with, in that chair, was real, regardless of who had the stream open. What most coverage has gotten wrong is treating this like a single tattoo removal. It isn't. She has 5 tattoos dedicated to Blueface. 5. Back in 2022, she said in an interview she wanted 7. 7 being her number, meaningful to her specifically, and she was still too short of the goal she'd set for herself. So the face portrait wasn't an outlier. It was part of a deliberate collection. By the time December came around, she'd started removal on 2 of them. The face portrait was first. The second one she live-streamed was a tattoo near her private area reading Jonathan's P*SI. His government name again removed on camera, documented for the same audience. This is a systematic removal of every permanent marker this relationship left on her body. The scale of that project is something the "she's finally moving on" framing completely misses. The same day, Chrisean was in that clinic. Blueface was posting about his new girlfriend, Nevaeh, and the fresh tattoo she'd just gotten. His government name, Jonathan, inked under her chin. Same name, same day. One woman lasering it off, another putting it on. In the same city, on the same date. The internet caught it within hours. Screenshots went side by side everywhere, and Blueface leaned directly into the contrast, making pointed comments about permanence, about how tattoos are forever, how removal wasn't something he believed in, which sits awkwardly against the fact that in 2024, while incarcerated, he debuted a tattoo dedicated to Chrisean on a jail video call, and had it covered up almost immediately after his release. The forever speech loses some of its force when you factor that in. Whether Nevaeh's appointment was timed deliberately or just happened to land that way, the optics were what they were. Chrisean burning his face off her skin, while his new woman was getting his name permanently added, wasn't something you could ignore, and nobody did. Blueface gave the Shade Room an exclusive, and what he said went further than anyone expected. I'm happy for her, honestly. When someone wishes death and jail on your life in the same sentence, giving out your address for nothing but harm onto you, it feels like I'm getting away from a fatal attraction that could potentially cost me my life. He said he hopes she gets all of them removed. He said he has her fully blocked. He said their son Chrisean Jr. is someone he still intends to parent, but that any arrangement will go through a third party because he won't be in direct contact with her. I can't put my life in jeopardy for anyone. The breaking point, by his account, was the 48 hours after he got out of prison. He claims she told him he should go back into custody permanently. He claims she shared his home address publicly. Whether those specifics hold up exactly or not, the language he used to describe the relationship, fatal attraction, something that could cost him his life, isn't the language of a bad breakup. That's the language of someone who believes the danger was real. He's enforcing distance like it's a matter of survival. People looking for a clean explanation of why Chrisean kept getting these tattoos, even as everything fell apart, are looking for something that doesn't exist. The relationship didn't end on one day that made everything clear. It eroded across years, in public, slowly, in pieces, out of something that had hardened into a fixed point she couldn't walk away from, even when every external signal was pointing toward the exit. That's not a simple story of poor decisions. That's a kind of emotional lock-in that a lot of people have lived through. The version where you know on some level you should leave, but leaving would mean admitting something you're not ready to admit. Most people do it quietly, without cameras. Chrisean did it with a tattoo gun and an audience. Now she's doing the undoing the same way. And that consistency, the total lack of privacy in how she moves through her own life, is either who she genuinely is, or it's become so fused with who she is that the distinction stopped mattering. One side saw it honestly. Whatever you thought about the decisions that got her here, the image of someone lying in a clinic, having a face tattoo lasered off while crying, isn't something you mock without revealing something about yourself. Comments like, "Can't imagine carrying someone's face on yours after it's over," got traction because they were accurate. The empathy wasn't about excusing anything. It was just people recognizing a human being in a hard moment. The other side wasn't interested. Shouldn't have got it in the first place. Stated, repeated, done. And sure, that's technically true. But it also completely misreads what was happening. She wasn't there asking for permission to feel bad about it. She was already paying the price. Physically, session by session. The retrospective criticism was directed at someone in the middle of the consequence, which makes it land as noise more than anything. People with actual knowledge of tattoo removal cut through both sides with a practical reality. Face skin is more sensitive than the rest of the body. The ink coverage here is significant, and a tattoo this size in this location needs multiple sessions, with proper healing time between each one, no sun exposure, careful aftercare, months of process at minimum. 3 more tattoos still have to go through the same thing. This isn't a moment. It's a commitment she's made to a long, uncomfortable road. The detail that keeps pulling focus is the one she led with. She walked in and told them to start with the face, not the neck piece. Not one of the body tattoos she could have handled first to ease into the pain. The face, the most exposed, the most talked about, the one that showed up in every photo for 2 years straight. You could read that as theater, could read it as urgency. Probably it's neither cleanly. With Chrisean, those two things have always existed in the same space, and trying to separate them forces a binary she's never actually lived in. She is someone who processes everything out loud in front of people, and it's been that way long enough that it's just the truth of how she operates. What cuts through anyway is the thing she said after. Not the healing language which came off polished, but the specific admission that she didn't realize how attached she was until the removal actually started. That kind of discovery, where you think you've already done the internal work, and then the physical act reveals you haven't. That's something you run into by accident, in the middle of something you can't stop. She ran into it on a table in Los Angeles, with a laser on her face, and she cried in front of everyone who was watching. Blueface has her blocked. His new girlfriend has his name on her body. Their son is somewhere in the middle of all of it. And Chrisean Rock still has 3 more tattoos to go. That's where this actually is. Not resolved, not clean, just moving forward in the only way she apparently knows how, out loud, in public, one painful session at a time.